Okay. You feel free to answer questions or ask questions as we go along. You can use both the Q&A or the chat feature, and we will address those at the end of our session today. So let me go ahead and introduce our featured speaker. Emily Jones is an associate professor of physical education and teacher education in the School of Kinesiology and Recreation. She serves as the undergraduate PE education program director and coordinates the fully online master's in physical education pedagogy. Yes, that sequence at Illinois State. I'll have her get on and say that. Okay, Dr. Jones conducts research related to school and community-based physical activity programs and initiatives that enhance health and wellness. Recently, she co-authored a white paper focused on policy recommendations for post-COVID physical activity for school-aged children. The white paper is in a series of policy recommendations endorsed by the U.S. Physical Activity Alliance, whose mission is to lead efforts to create, support, and advocate policy and system changes that enable all Americans to enjoy physical active lives. Very timely topic that this white paper came out during this time. So we welcome Emily and appreciate her sharing her expertise with all of us today. I'm turning it over, Emily, and you can fix my massacre that your intro.
Jamie, it's no problem. I'm so thrilled to be here and thankful that each of you decided to join us for the live session. And for those of you who log in and watch this recording, I'm just thankful that this topic that we're going to have conversation about across the next hour really does bring value to you in your day and maybe some of the daily habits that you participate in your own health journey and those with your family who lives in the same space as you. So as Jamie said, my name is Emily Jones. I get to really work with future PE teachers, those teachers who are entering schools and living in communities that are impacting the lives of young people and their families. And then the master's program in PE pedagogy is working with in-service teachers, and that's a fully online program. And it works to deepen and extend the knowledge and experiences that practicing teachers across the state and across the nation have and the impact that they can make in the lives of their communities. So this topic, I'm so thankful for CAST, for College of Applied Science and Technology, for reaching out to show interest in this topic as it's something that might be valuable for our ISU Redbird alums. So, and thank you, Jamie, for alumni engagement for hosting this webinar. So, COVID-19 has brought about so many changes in our daily lives and our society, and including what opportunities exist for us to be healthful, right? Our daily opportunities for children of all ages, adolescents and young adults, and our families. So we're going to kind of walk through some resources that you may know about, kind of put in front of you some additional supports that you could hopefully apply in your life or think about at least maybe, and help you get connected to other people and other resources and entities and agencies that have supports and are there for you. So as we begin, I just want to kind of put this out there that the title of our topic, the title of our webinar is about being healthy and active as families. And I'm not here to tell you today what family is supposed to be like. We have so many wonderful types of families to celebrate in our communities. And whether that's single parent, multi-generational, interracial, unmarried partners of the same or opposite sex, whatever the family dynamic is, we want to, and I want to encourage and celebrate with you the family that you are part of, and perhaps that's your neighborhood family or family not by blood. And each of these types of families have distinct advantages and disadvantages. I've got 2 young kiddos, and being where I am in my stage of life, my daycare provider made a very sweet joke and it didn't hurt my feelings. She says, "You're a parent of young kids. You're not a young parent." And she was so right. And so my life and stage of life with my young kiddos is different and has its wonderful advantages and also its challenges. So I hope that you bring with your advantages and your challenges today, and maybe you can find something that works for you. The second kind of caveat before we jump in here is that health at every size is also something to be celebrated. Yes, we see our primary care providers or our physicians on an annual basis, and sometimes they give us these criteria that we need to meet or whether we have achieved and we want to maintain or set some goals. But health at every size is actually a community and organization that celebrates and respectfully includes everyone at every size. Really, it's about body diversity and respecting and honoring those differences in size, race, ethnicity, gender, ability, disability, religion, class, right? We are all different and we are all, we can be healthy, we are healthy, and we have to respect those differences that exist amongst us. We also, health at every size brings about critical awareness that there's some scientific and some cultural assumptions about what health looks like. Some of the research and activities that we do within our teacher education program here at ISU is bringing to awareness our undergraduate students that sometimes our culture dictates what we think health and fitness looks like. And we really need to break those stereotypes, because if you do a Google search or if you do a web browser search and type in fitness, an image appears very consistently and it excludes a lot of different demographics. So we have to be mindful that when we talk to children, we talk to ourselves about what health is and looks like, we have to be mindful that we cannot subscribe to this unrealistic norm of what body and health looks like. And then this last piece here, I'm just going to challenge, we're putting it out there here, is that health at every size is also this compassionate self-care, where we can find joy in moving our body, whether that's yoga or skateboarding or ice skating or jogging or doing high intensity training. But we can find joy in that and be compassionate with ourselves, that we listen to what hurts and stops, or what used to be able to be something we could that no longer we can. But we're compassionate with ourselves in moving. We're compassionate with ourselves when we decide to eat and what we eat, and recognize that we can be healthy where we are right now. So putting that kind of as our frame, there's some key supports and resources that I want to share with us today. And actually quite a bit of what I'm going to share with you today is from some of these resources. And I wanted to put these here for you because these organizations, federally funded, nonprofits, for-profits, are here to support families. They're here to support children, educators, community members, and us. So as we walk through today, you'll hear me reference healthychildren.org, which is an American Academy of Pediatrics supports. There's a ton of really fantastic resources, newsletters, webinars you can sign up for that age range from those who perhaps are expecting and prenatal, all the way through the different developmental stages of young people. Action for Healthy Kids is an outstanding nonprofit organization that really ties in and supports schools infrastructure to connect with community entities to support and enhance what the wellness and physical activity and health components are available to our America's children. National Association for School Psychologists, they have fantastic social and emotional resources. If you have school-age children, regardless of age, elementary, middle, or high, you can kind of pop in there and see the types of supports, the types of structures, the types of professional development that school psychologists have available to them to provide supports for you and your kids and your families. American Heart, they're always kind of like a long-standing organization that provides resources, programming, information. February is Heart Health Month, so you might be hearing from some educators about wearing red or doing jump rope or hoops for heart, which are fundraisers for schools and bring awareness to heart health. CDC and the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services are surveillance and trend-based data that are also generating recommendations. So you'll see some of those. And then lastly, Jamie mentioned, I'm part of the U.S. Physical Activity Alliance by way of researchers and scholars across the country are looking for ways to address taking a look at our current status with COVID and what is post-COVID schools and physical activity policies and recommendations going to look like in order to help build environments and systems for Americans, regardless of age and ability. So like I said today, I've got 3 primary aims and they're going to kind of be intermixed, and as questions come up, please do drop those in the chat. But it's about enhancing access and awareness, empowering you, hopefully, with some knowledge and resources. And then the aim throughout is to build partnership and collaboration across you and other entities in your community and the schools. So we're going to kind of talk a little bit about the benefits of physical activity, right? Health and wellness spans beyond physical movement, but we'll start here because there's a lot of empirical evidence that supports the value of regular physical activity, not just for kiddos, but for us as well, for adults and older adults. These benefits here listed on this page range from physiological benefits and changes to healthy bones, muscles, and joints, but also in the future with reduction of risk for some comorbidities such as diabetes or heart disease. But the things that I love are the benefits that I can feel today. I can feel that when I'm more active, when I'm active on a regular basis, I sleep better, I feel stronger, I have more energy, and I'm able to regulate my mood. And this is not just an Emily thing, but these outcomes have been identified by science over and over again, that mood regulation, reduction of anxiety, tension, or even signs of depression can be mediated by regular physical activity. And so when we think about, reflecting back on your week or your day or the day before, have you been able to slide in some minutes of activity throughout the day? And sometimes we wonder, well, how much activity? And, there's some fantastic campaigns that have come out that are helpful in communicating to students. You might have heard of NFL Play 60. The play on it is that 60 minutes is what we're looking for children to accumulate each day. And then what counts, right? 60 minutes of physical activity for kiddos is also then translating to physical activity for us as terms of adults, looking for how much activity per day. So one of the examples or one of these resources, I've tried to provide all of the links down in the bottom, and I know that you might just have to type that into your web browser to get there. But Move Your Way is a U.S. Department of Health and Human Services resource. And this website, I took just some snapshots of it. But it helps us kind of think about maybe structuring our day, or our students or our children, regardless of age, structuring their day and thinking about when can we get physical activity. If the goal is 60 minutes, which it says there in that header, right? Kids and teens need 60 minutes of activity every day. It doesn't have to be all at once. It can be in 5-minute increments or 10-minute increments. And up in the upper right-hand corner where we've got kind of like, I did 5 minutes and then I did 10 minutes of activity and then I did 20, as so long as your minutes accumulate to 60, that's helping to meet those daily recommendations. And then if we look at the columns here, U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, this Move Your Way provide some examples, right? Maybe before, after school, maybe during school or during the school day if you've got remote learners, or in the evening with families or friends. Doing yoga or stretching or walking or biking to school, if that's a feasible thing for you to have the children active transit, or if you do walking school bus, even dance parties, right, in the after school hours, or if you do some organized sport or organized individual activity. As this one is my favorite here in that last column. It says in the evening, right? Did you or could you during screen time get up and move during the commercials, right? Or do a dance party in between the commercials. Even if it's that 5 minutes, can we help children and school age learners to start to see how they might accumulate 60 total minutes before, during, and after the school day? And schools and school teachers and physical educators and health educators are working really hard in this physical environment to create opportunities where children can accumulate those minutes of physical activity. And not only during PE, but during classroom activity breaks or brain breaks or yoga stretch breaks or before and after school program. And we'll take a look at some of those. Move Your Way has also provided some really fun graphics for us to think about and see, how we interact with activity. And of course, this seems to be tailored a little bit more towards children and adolescents, or perhaps adults with young people in their lives. But I know that as an adult, sometimes my question is just how much activity do I need? What kind of activity? And then do I have to do it all at once? And for kids and adults, we'll see that our physical activity recommendations for youth and adults, you'll see that there's a variety of different types of activities. In this panel here on the right side and the top, it says, what kind of activity do I need? And we can think about as adults that perhaps activity is only just cardio. I have to go for a walk, or I have to go for a run, or I have to use the elliptical. But rather, we do want to strengthen our muscles and our bones through the image there is jump roping. So some sort of impact. So it's jumping jacks or jump rope, or climbing and jumping and landing. If you think about the playground structures that maybe your young people have been on, there's jumping and landing opportunities for them, because that impact, if done safely, can help to build those muscles and joints and bones. The middle one is building our muscles. So that's strength training. And it also doesn't have to go to the extreme where we're doing heavy weight lifting for strength training, where we're doing heavy weight and only doing a few reps. This can be body weight. This can be some lunges. This can be some squats or push-ups. It doesn't have to be any weight at all except for your own body, which is fabulous. And then the third is, of course, that cardio, activities that are causing us to strengthen our heart and our lungs, right? Where I'm out of breath because I'm being active or I'm exercising, and I am doing so to strengthen my cardiorespiratory system. So even as adults, we'll see here in a minute what kind of recommendations we have, but how do we build this into the regular part of our day and our life? And thinking about, for those of us that might have young people in our lives or in our neighborhoods, here's kind of a bulleted list, and we'll kind of talk through these here slightly, is if you have young people, and this might be early childhood to middle grades and to high school, can we find ways to encourage them to be safe and engage in unstructured movement and play, particularly for early childhood, ages 3 to 6, 3 to 5. Really, we want them to explore safely their environments, their movement environments. So perhaps we just get out of the way. Perhaps we're at the playground and we make sure that they're safe, but we just encourage them to explore their learning environment. And of course, they may fall down and they may get some skinned knees, and we're there to help them out. But the more that they can experience their environment without us dictating rules, or without us dictating how quickly or how fast or how many of whatever that they're doing, although that can be fun, giving them the opportunity to explore, because then that builds that curiosity. Another is making activity part of our daily routines. Maybe that's after your lunch, after a meal, you go for walks. I know that this is a routine that some of my family friends do every day. They go for a 15-minute walk as a family, or they play active games together. So on the far right, if you're new to yoga, or you don't have young kids, or you're not interested, or you wonder why that's on there, Cosmic Kids Yoga, we have some friends, and we do a Wednesday night virtual yoga session with them. They live out of state, and we both log into YouTube at our respective homes, and we pick the Cosmic Kids Yoga theme that we want to do, and it can be anywhere from 10 minutes to 20 minutes. And this particular YouTube channel it's about storytelling and very fun and easy yoga movements, and it's really appropriate from early childhood. Probably you get to upper elementary and then the kiddos might lose interest, but that's something that we have chosen to do as a family on every Wednesday evening. Even the adults participate. We stock up on toys and equipment that promotes activity. So at Christmas time, we fill our kids' Christmas lists with activity toys, or things that might be things that we can do at the summertime, or tumbling mats, or instead of prompting with maybe sedentary type toys, we try to stock up on equipment that could encourage creative movement. Moving to a new community, or being part of a community for a long time, sometimes we don't know what exists in our community. So we've done windshield driving tours, and we kind of just get lost on purpose. This part of town, there's this outstanding park, or this part of town, this is where the trails picks up, or this part of town, this is where the YWCA is, or this is where the YMCA is. We just do windshield tours and take some mental notes, and then we try to visit some of those playgrounds and play spaces that we didn't know about before. We've got lots of kiddos in our middle schools now that perhaps don't love traditional team sport. And so perhaps they do, right? And we don't want to discourage that. But some of the things that our future PE teachers are learning how to do is learning how to teach archery, learning how to teach rollerblading, learning how to teach skateboarding, learning how to teach high ropes, learning how to teach things that perhaps would be really interesting to some students who aren't naturally drawn to team sport, and that's fine. So if you have a kiddo in your life who likes to skateboard, and they do so safely, encourage that, because that can really give them some autonomy and competence in an area that is valuable to them. And when you take interest in their physical activity, it can promote some more regular activities. Think about these non-traditional activities. Maybe your community has recreational activities that you can sign individuals up for. See what's interesting to you, or maybe try something new. And then, of course, always try to do so safely. So make sure that you've got protective materials. PE programs are starting to actually write grants for equipment where there would need bicycles and protective equipment and skateboarding and rock wall. So the PE of today sometimes doesn't look like the PE of the past, which is awesome. If you've got young people, here's again, developmentally appropriate types of activities are also an area. So this is the American Academy of Pediatrics, just a snapshot. If I've got a middle schooler, if you notice that middle schoolers from a developmental standpoint, you can see that top box, we want activities that are going to encourage them to be social, to know how to carefully and safely interact with one another's in an active setting. And figure out how to resolve conflict, right? Sport and movement and activity, sometimes we get closer in proximity to one another and we have got to figure out how to resolve that conflict. Sometimes there's more rules and so on. So for middle schoolers, we're looking at 60 minutes a day, and then 3 days a week, some sort of strengthening exercises. It doesn't have to be weight training, folks. That's where that might body weight or even core strength comes into play. So the Physical Activity Guidelines for Americans, again, breaks down some more specifics on the types of activities. And you can find this document available for PDF download And then you can scroll through and see what some of those specific recommendations are. American Heart, we've got this printed out and on our refrigerator and a couple other places around our house. When we get a little antsy, we get a little hard time listening, we do rock, paper, scissors, and then the person who wins gets to go over and pick a number, and then we both do that number that is picked. So if it's 12, then we stretch your hands high over your head, and then we do rock, paper, scissors, and we pick another activity, and the winner gets to go choose, and then we both do that as well. So again, this might be a little bit more for middle grades or younger. So there are resources on Pinterest, an excellent resource. If you want some sort of graphic like this that you might want to put as an environmental prompt in your home, there's some really great ones. For those of us who are adults or even older adults, there are guidelines for us as well. And remember, we're all health at every size and stage here. So start with an understanding of where you are. It's kind of like building this activity baseline. You don't have to do Beachbody or P90X or CrossFit to be considered healthy and active. Rather, as adults, that first check mark, move more and sit less. So figure out how much you move and how much you sit each day, and then just try to change that balance a little bit. Looking for across a week's time, adults are looking at 150 minutes of moderate to vigorous physical activity a week. So what that looks like for you might be 60 minutes every day, or it might be more or less depending on what you can fit and how you fit that within your schedule. But even as adults, we're looking at strengthening exercises and stretching as well. So we want to find time where we are building in muscular strengthening, cardio, and opportunities for flexibility, and the flexibility which can also prevent injuries as we age. It's wintertime, and here this season, we have found some really cold weather. And if you're listening to this in the summer, maybe it's just really hot. And so if you think about this, there's indoor things that we can do to engage those within our family. And this is kind of ways to connect with young people. But honestly, I have found these strategies to be helpful when I'm interacting with teenagers or even some of my college-age students, because of how we then communicate with one another. So if you're looking for ways to play and engage with others, particularly indoors, this first one here is work and play side by side. So what this means is that it's kind of encouraging the young people to walk and work alongside of you, right? Whether that's folding laundry or making a meal together, or it's setting up what the Instacart grocery list looks like. And when we start communicating with those in our life about some of these regular mundane types of things, different things happen. Okay, we give students autonomy, we give these kiddos some understanding of what happens in your household. We also build this communication, right? This language, the more vocabulary that we use, it broadens their understanding of different concepts as well. And we can play with that as well, emptying out pasta or cereal boxes, and then pretending with those as well. Some awesome PE teachers have used recyclable materials and turned those into throwing or manipulative devices that either you can use to throw, toss, and catch, or even strike and slide. This one teacher used some paper plates, used some painter's tape, put it on their kitchen floor that was like a wood floor, a linoleum, and then used a broom or a hand to just shuffle, if you would, or slide that plate, trying to get it into their opponent's square that they had marked off with the painter's tape. It's kind of a shuffleboard game, but it was also a target and a really fun activity. But it was like work and play side by side. We had to create that game with one another, and it was really a lot of fun. The second is pretending, right? So if you've got youngsters or who are maybe in this creative play, listening to them as they play to try to see what maybe perhaps these social and emotional well-being needs are of your kiddos. Are they talking about COVID? Are they talking about missing somebody? Are they talking about something that they're excited about? And then engage with them, right? To help them try to express, what do you think the doll might be sad about? Or was that easy? Was that frustrating? How do you think we could help that person or that doll as they're pretending to feel better? And it kind of starts this problem solving and solutions together. The next is getting creative with arts and crafts. Some of us might not be very crafty, and if that's you, I'm with you. But I do have a youngster who loves Legos, and I can get down with some Legos. And there was a couple of weeks where we spent a lot of time with Legos, and the creations that she made were so incredible, and mine looked like. Well, not as incredible, but what we were able to do is some fun things. It spun off in such a fun way where instead of it being what somebody else might have thought it would be, we found some boxes and we painted the cityscape on the back of the boxes, and we glued some really crazy art crafts things that we had and some recycled things. And then, she was role playing with the Legos, and I said, well, what if we just make a quick little movie? So we integrated this technology, we wrote a script, it little got out of hand, but it was so fun, and it was what a memory that we made. What if we would do this? And that didn't work. Well, let's try something new. Well, that didn't work either. I think we're stuck. What can we do next? What a fun way to engage. And it was different than what anybody else was doing, and so fun. This last one here about indoor play is asking us to kind of, think about perhaps challenging them to start sorting and compartmentalizing and understanding and exploring fine motor skills, perhaps. We have lots of toys that if you search on different web browsers or look through different catalogs, that if you just think through a little bit, when they come and they spill out 900 pieces on your living room floor and you think, why did somebody buy this for my kid for Christmas? Perhaps reframe it. And is there a way for us to challenge the littles to look at colors and sort things by size, or sort things by shape, or perhaps by type, or what it does or what it could do? And again, turning it into a little bit of fun is something that I kind of learned from Dolly Parton, to be honest. I don't know if anybody has signed their kids up for the Dolly Parton library, but she sends out books to anybody who signs up. And on the inside cover of those books, or the back flap, there's always these little prompts that guide the adult who's reading the book to be an active reader, or to encourage active listening and active reading. And there are things that as a parent I would have never thought about engaging my child in as I read a book. I just thought that reading was reading. But I've learned so much by resources like this, or the Dolly Parton Imagination Library, which has encouraged me to become a little bit more intentional and an active parent, or in her case, an active reader. Now, we've got things like cooking. It was funny because before the webinar, I was talking to some friends, and even Jamie here, about cooking with our kids and with young kiddos. Perhaps cooking can be exciting because it's this family thing and it's new, and sometimes it's seen as something that only grown-ups can do. But as we've learned, as kids age, perhaps they see it as less fun. They see it more of as a chore. So this might not work for you, but I know I have a spouse who also didn't learn how to cook as a young person. And so when we cook together, I feel like part of these 5 little, bullet points for tips here apply to my interactions with my husband in the kitchen, is trying to pull him in to enjoy cooking as much as I do, because it's one of those self-care things for me, and it might not be for you, but for engaging others, right, who perhaps are hesitant in the kitchen or picky eaters. It's such an interesting way that food, and if we are able to make things from scratch, engages different senses, not just taste and smell, but sight, but also the texture of kneading bread, or the texture of an egg yolk. I mean, things clean up, right? Like if you're a type A person and you don't like messes, don't let certain people crack the eggs. But otherwise, rinsing vegetables or tearing lettuce can really stimulate a young person's mind and sensations. It can become quite fun. The next here is think about all of the measuring that goes into cooking, math concepts, counting, measurements, fractions. Working with my 8-year-old daughter, when I say I need a quarter of a cup, oh, well, I have to think about, well, what does it say on the measuring cup? It doesn't say quarter of a cup, it says 1/4. Ooh, what a neat math concept. Well, we don't have a half a cup. So how many quarters of a cup do we need? If you have time to teach and time to engage and some patience to let someone else try something, it can be right fun. It can also be something that becomes part of your culture, part of your family. This is what we do. We take walks after dinner and we cook together, or someone sets the table together. Or we have a garden together. We've planted some herbs in the garden, and honestly, I don't know what to do with half of the herbs that I planted, but they're beautiful, and so we try to find new recipes to use them, and that's been really fun in our family. Of course, we're wanting to teach kids how to be safe, right? Even my spouse, who reaches into the microwave to grab something hot, learns pretty quickly. But nope, we need oven mitts to pull something out, or when we turn appliances on and off safely. Supervising kiddos appropriately is part of teaching them responsibility, and what's appropriate at certain stages and ages. We learn the more we experiment, and keeping kiddos safe is always going to be a priority. Lastly, this kind of alludes to our picky eaters. When young people or even adults have choice in their meal, either in preparation of it or what types of ingredients are included or not included, I know our region, with as many beautiful farmers markets that there are and local producers, our schools, you may not know, they are buying locally from local farmers so that fresh fruits and vegetables show up on your kid's garden bar. And if you didn't know that, reach out. Reach out to your school administrators or to your food service professionals. They are doing some amazing things, and the U.S. Department of Agriculture is supporting and sponsoring more and more farm to plate and farm to table experiences for your K-12 students and schools. So when you think about putting that money in your kids' bank account for lunches, think about encouraging, how can you get involved in being sure that there's lots of colors on that garden bar, and gives them some autonomy in picking out the foods that are healthful for them. Just a couple more things here. And this kind of, when we think about health and wellness, and I know our conversation is about being active and engaging with those that we live with, our family members. This has been a hard year, right? And many of us still sort of wonder, how much longer are we going to be anxious, or perhaps how many more times are we going to have to change our routines and be isolated from those that we love and adapt to new norms. I know that stress and figuring out ways to manage that stress, and am I resilient, and am I resilient in all things or only some? And what types of coping strategies have you found that are healthy, and what types of coping strategies have you gotten into that perhaps are less healthy? I know that our college age population folks, this is something that we're seeing more and more in the research and trend data, is that our college age population have coped perhaps with more alcohol and more binge drinking than ever before because of some of these challenges. So this is real in terms of how we can extend supports for those that we love. And we also know that there's good stresses, right? Being challenged and recognizing that we can do hard things and we're capable and we're smart, and we can build resilience and grow. And then there's bad stress, the stress that happens to us, like divorce or loss of a family member or economic challenges, or even things that are going around us that we have no control over. And children respond just like adults respond to stress and anxiousness and anxiety in a lot of ways. And so the statement at the bottom here, this is not a blanket, right? There are some of us that need more help and more guidance and more supports. But as a general encouragement to you, as if you're a parent and you're living with kids or young ones or grown kids or a spouse, those of us in our lives, or those in our lives that have a sense of competence, meaning that they feel like they can do something and do something well, and they're empowered to and feel loved and supported in their decisions, generally speaking, do well. So even if we don't understand why our kids chose what they did, or why our spouse chose how they responded in the way that they did, or maybe they did something really ridiculous, those who feel loved unconditionally, regardless of decisions, generally do well and can build those resilience and coping strategies. The anxieties and the pressures of life right now, it would be remiss of me if I didn't include just this snapshot of thinking about how we can support one another or support ourselves and advocate for ourselves. Depression and anxiety are real, and more clinical diagnoses are being presented, and we have to recognize that perhaps there are things that we see in others or we recognize in ourselves that perhaps lead us to think that there's some additional supports that are needed. Here are some of the cognitive or the behavioral or even psychological symptoms or cues, if you would, cues of depression in kids, and that also translates into others, meaning other ages. And so if you kind of look through those lists of things that you might recognize in yourself or others cognitively, behaviorally, or psychologically, depression can be acute, meaning it happens in a short window of time. It's kind of isolated. It can turn into something that's longer term and has more physiological repercussions. So if in fact you see or recognize that in yourself or someone who you love, the American Association for School Psychologists kind of put together these very simple, not that they're easy to do, but 4 simple things is that we can't avoid it, and it's complex, and there's usually multi-dimensions, but we want to avoid using negative techniques. And what that means is, as best as you can, avoid using punishment for some of these withdrawal behaviors, avoid using sarcasm or other techniques that would perhaps reinforce an individual's feeling of incompetence or low self-esteem. Another thing is here to make adjustments or accommodations to tasks. This doesn't mean to let them off the hook and lower expectations, but it does mean perhaps giving more time or breaking a task into smaller pieces, or offering some extra assistance and helping set up some whether it's academic study plans or ways to accomplish small tasks that they're finding difficult to do. The third is for planning for success. And what I mean by this is, boy, we're all busy. But if you're recognizing some of these withdrawing features, and you might get rejected, but can you schedule events? Can you say, verbalize just how excited you are to do something in the future with these individuals? I believe in you and I want to spend time with you, and I'm excited to do this with you. This is going to be so great. I know this is something that you like, and I'm excited for that. And the last is to commit to conversation. So withdrawal individuals perhaps don't feel and don't engage in conversation, but my challenge to you is to not be afraid to talk to somebody about how they're feeling. Sometimes they're seeking someone who cares, and someone who they know is not going to give up on them. So if you're wondering about how to start that conversation, whether it's because of its depression or anxiety or COVID or fill in the blank of something that you're recognizing, Action for Healthy Kids kind of puts together these guides here, these encouragements for us as caregivers, as parents, as family members, as spouses, as friends, as neighbors, to start with just simple conversation and recognize that, from an empathy and diversity of emotion recognition is, I might not know how you feel, but I want to understand how you feel. And I want to recognize that, like, this emotional awareness or this emotional intelligence, are there cues, are there words, are there things that they're saying over and over again that you can affirm and reinforce, or that you can put to sleep in their lives, at least through your words. Get up and move. Of course, Action for Healthy Kids is going to encourage you to get up and move and have these conversations. A walking meeting, a walk and talk is an awesome way to stimulate conversation. And again, these are not going to, like, one-time conversations solve everything. But if we can let their questions and let their emotions and let their conversation guide what we hear and what we say and how we respond, and then not give up on them. So once again, throughout the last our time together, different resources, people. It takes a little bit of knowing to maybe where to go, but these 6 resources that I showed at the beginning of the webinar are some excellent places, and there's depth within each of these, both webinars and newsletters that you could subscribe to on a regular, or data if you're very data driven and you want to look for empirical evidence and how does that connect to practice and recommendations. Here are some, not all, but here are some resources that I hope that you can get connected to and that you can find valuable in today and how you and your family continue to engage in healthful behaviors. So Jamie, that's all I have here. So I'll toggle it back to that last slide with the resources, but I'd love to hear if there are questions or comments or how we can continue our conversation.
Emily, thank you so much. This has just been a wealth of information. I am so grateful for you sharing all of this with us today. Does anybody have any questions to put into the Q&A or the chat? Feel free to do so. I'm going to go ahead and stop our recording. So again, thank you.